We are in the Stebbins House at historic Deerfield, and more specifically, we're in the historic kitchen of the Stebbins House. And this is a space you can tour right now if you come to the exhibit Building Archaeology at the Stebbins House, where you can see the different things we're investigating here as we prepare for the restoration project. But one mystery I wanted to call your attention to here, one of many dozens of architectural mysteries we're wrestling with here at the Stebbins House, is that wooden beam you can see placed above the fireplace, a few courses of bricks above the fireplace set into the brickwork. And a visitor recently asked about that just a couple of weeks ago, was in and wondered if that wasn't there, as was the case in his nearby historic house, if that beam wasn't put there to be a nailer for a mantel shelf or a fireplace surround, a way to affix that to the wall. And it's a decent theory, but one that probably doesn't apply here at the Stebbins House. If we take a really close look at it, first I'll call your attention there to those great reciprocal saw marks or up and down sash saw marks. That's those vertical lines in the beam. Probably suggests this is a pretty old beam that was milled in a sawmill before the use of circular saws that became popular in the mid 19th century. But what I really want you to see here is the lack of nail holes in this. And obviously, if someone was affixing a shelf or a fireplace surround, some kind of mantle, you would expect to see some pretty regular nail holes. There is one about a third of the way down here, a little more than halfway. There's a nice nail hole there, it looks like. But for the most part, besides some scars and other marks, there's really nothing as far as nail holes, especially down here on this north end. There's almost no scars or anything. So if it wasn't put there for use as a nailer, what is its function? One theory could be it's there as the result of a repair. If we look above the beam and see that brickwork that looks like it's been disturbed, you can clearly see different mortar there. There was a damper installed at some point in this chimney, and so perhaps the wood beam could have been installed when they installed that damper. And that was probably a 20th century installation, or at least a 20th century repair. And the reason I say that is the mortar. If we look above here at most of the mortar in the chimney stack, it's this white, more chalky, softer lime-based mortar, which is what you expect to see with historic mortars for the most part. But the mortar here around the bricks above that wooden beam and even surrounding that wooden beam, as you can see here, if we can focus in, is a much harder, probably Portland-based cement mortar that really didn't become popular until the 20th century. And I suspect this is even a mid 20th century damper installation or repair job. So the beam could possibly have been just inserted during that process. But I think another theory, which is equally viable, is that this beam was put there in 1799 when the Stebbins family first built this portion of the house. And the reason I think that might be the case is because it was really common in the 18th century and 19th century to install a wooden beam like that above the fireplace opening to help ease the weight pressure bearing down upon iron lintels. And in the 18th century, there was a transition from those really large wooden beams you see just above the firebox opening, those you see in historic houses where it's a major beam just above the flames. There was a transition in the 18th century to these iron lintels. And you can see just under the header course there's about a half-inch thick piece of iron that goes across the entire fireplace opening. It's only about 3 inches deep probably. And so that's how the brickwork was held above. There is a relieving arch. You can tell there's a little bit of an arch to these bricks, which was also a structural solution to bear weight and make this more structurally secure. But it was really common in the 18th and 19th century for New England builders to also place a wooden beam a few courses above the opening of the fireplace to help ease that weight bearing down upon the fireplace opening and to move it around the fireplace opening. So I think that's quite possibly the situation here. If we look, this beam does fully span the opening. Here it hangs over an inch or two maybe, and on the north side it hangs over by quite a few inches, maybe even more than a half foot. So whether or not the positioning is exact or not of how this would have been placed in the chimney stack, that could have been altered when they reset the beam during that damper installation or that repair that happened. But I think there's a really good chance that that's a 1799 beam that was first installed in the chimney stack by the Stebbins family's builders in 1799 and was there to create a little more structural support for that fireplace. There's more to investigate here. Sometimes those beams above the iron lintels would have been connected to them through a vertical rod or a bolt. And so there's a chance we'll find some evidence that beam was at least once connected to the iron lintel below it. So we might be able to investigate and uncover more evidence. But other than that, it might remain a mystery. We'll see. If anyone has any suggestions, please let us know. Otherwise, stay tuned for updates.